are you a bigger fan of the Tifa or the Aerith ship with?
I dare not say the names of these ships because they scare me. All right, so hello everyone, I am Curious Corduroy. If you are new here, welcome in. Thanks for checking out the channel. If you're a returning viewer, thank you. It means a lot. But today we're going to be checking out a developer interview with GamesRadar where they sat down with Naoki Hamaguchi to talk to him about the Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy. Now, GamesRadar has been putting out written articles from what I assume is this interview. Those are available to read online, but I assume this is the full interview with Hamaguchi, which means this is all they've got left. So I'm very curious to hear what he has to say. There might be some repeat stuff that we've already covered in previous videos, but anytime Hamaguchi gets to talk about this trilogy, it's a good time. He clearly loves it. He loves talking about it, and he's got a lot to say. So let's see what he's got to say. And as always, I'll leave a link in the description to the full video if you'd like to watch it on your own without me yapping and pausing and all that stuff. Let's mosey.
So just to start off, how you doing? Hope the jet lag's not too bad.
He's got to be exhausted.
One thing I wanted to start with is it's quite an interesting moment seeing Final Fantasy Rebirth sort of come to the Switch and obviously come to Xbox as well.
Yeah.
It's interesting with obviously the original Final Fantasy VII made it sort of start on the PlayStation. Final Fantasy Rebirth is very sort of PlayStation. And so now we're seeing it on Xbox and Switch 2. So what's kind of behind that pivot in strategy for you all?
So yeah, first of all, as a game creator, I think what makes me happiest and really satisfies me, I think most creators are the same, is the idea that to get as many people as possible to play the games that I make, and regardless of the platform that they're on, that's really important to me, is to have as many people as possible play and enjoy them. So this movement to other platforms, new platforms, multi-platform development for the remake series is at its heart. That's the first thing that's the most important for me.
Yeah, I just flashbanged myself. As a third-party company, I've been hammering this home for years now. It's super important to be multi-platform. I get that the exclusivity deal Square had with Sony probably is the reason why this trilogy even got made in the first place, but to survive and to ensure that more people have access to the game, potential for more sales and exposure, you really do gotta be multi-platform, especially for Square Enix, Capcom, these third-party devs. It is vital.
As you mentioned in the question, you're very much right that Final Fantasy VII originally started out on PlayStation, and Remake was originally released on PlayStation first. It was perhaps the strategy for how we released that made it a lot more accessible to PlayStation gamers than it did for other platforms.
Oh yeah.
Owners, other players on other platforms. But I think, yeah, you're right. Another thing you're very much right on in the question there is the fact that trends have changed, times have changed. And I think now everyone in the industry is realizing people are looking to play games in a lot of different ways. There's a lot more people who want to play on different hardware in different styles, and we kind of have to accommodate that and work towards allowing those options and those choices. So I think in some ways it's kind of fated that, you remember back the original Final Fantasy VII was kind of the turning point from Final Fantasy being on Nintendo hardware, and then we switched platforms to go with what was big at the time with the PlayStation hardware. And I think it's really fateful, and it's really interesting that Final Fantasy VII, the very same game in a lot of ways, the remake, is kind of now leading the way on the new change, which is going towards a much more even and balanced multi-platform release strategy. So I think it is quite interesting that we are the ones who seem to be doing that change with the times again.
That's interesting. I flashbanged myself again. I never thought about it like that. Yeah, obviously FF7 was the start of, OG FF7 was the departure of Square Enix from Nintendo. The big thing was that the tech that Nintendo was going with, the cartridge-based stuff, just didn't have enough memory. So Hironobu Sakaguchi, the creator of Final Fantasy, was like, that's not gonna work for us. We need more tech, which was like one of the biggest reasons they jumped ship to Sony and eventually made FF7 on PlayStation. There's a ton of stories that go into how that deal was made. Certain people from Sony schmoozing with Square Enix people. I think one of the previous heads of Sony, whose name I'm blanking on right now, talked about that specifically. So it's kind of interesting, though, that he points that out. I've never thought about that before. Of now the remake trilogy is doing the reverse. It's going multi-platform instead of closing itself off to one system. So that's pretty serendipitous. But also, I think that's kind of like the nature of third-party games these days. You're not really seeing a ton of third-party exclusives anymore. I can't really think of any right now off the top of my head. Everything seemingly is multi-platform except for the first-party stuff. But even then, you look at like Microsoft, which has been in disarray for well over a decade. I don't think they're going to find their footing again. The left hand over there does not know what the right hand is doing. It is a mess. But you look at one of their biggest franchises, Halo, is now going to be on PlayStation 5. That's a really big deal, and it's the original Halo. It's technically like the second remake, I think, of Halo 1, which is now headed to PlayStation 5, but it's like Halo is on PlayStation. No one ever thought that would happen. Even Gears of War is now on PlayStation, so Microsoft is a little bit of an outlier because their situation is very different and specific. But when it comes to the third-party stuff, there doesn't really seem to be much benefit for third party to be exclusive unless they're getting a big chunk of money, because in the long run you really want to be on everything possible. But that's cool. Bookending by being exclusive and then being multi-platform. That's pretty interesting.
You found sort of developing for both the Switch 2 and the Xbox. I know from other developers that the Xbox Series S can throw up some challenging development hurdles.
It's held back a few games. Baldur's Gate 3, I think, in particular. I don't remember if the Series X and S versions were delayed. It may have just been the S version, but I think they were having trouble with specific features, like split screen or something was not working right. And the S it's a cool console in the sense that it's all digital if that's what you want. It's cheaper, but powerhouse-wise, it's weaker than the Series X, which, can hold some games back. So I'm curious to hear what he says here.
I know, obviously, the Switch 2's game key cards have thrown up some
key
debate
cards
among fans. Obviously, it's very useful to be able to put bigger things on Switch 2 because of them, but obviously from a preservation standpoint, that's something that fans are quite passionate about as well.
It's super bittersweet. He's talked about this previously. I get it from a dev standpoint. Game key cards allow you to put these types of games on a Switch 2 and actually have them run and load info super fast. From a consumer standpoint, when you buy physical media, you want the physical media, not a game key card, which isn't technically physical media.
So how have you kind of navigated all of that?
So first of all, this links back to the previous answer as well. But as I was saying, I think the variety of different touch points and different styles, different gameplay environments that the fans are looking for and want to play games in, it is very much a feature of the gaming industry now. We very much have to adapt and release our content in a way that can cater to these multiple different proclivities, preferences and approaches. So we're going to, that's our policy going forward, is very much to go with that and to basically give people with different opportunities that they're looking for. Yeah, you mentioned in the question there are obviously a number of unique hurdles, issues with certain hardware that we have to overcome. So for example, the comparatively lower memory on the Xbox Series S might make sometimes getting larger games in there a bit more difficult, or on the Switch 2, for example, when you switch to handheld mode. Obviously,
two versions of the game,
machine
basically.
itself, the capabilities are lowered to account for battery preservation, etc. So obviously that means that achieving a higher frame rate might be slightly difficult with that. But obviously these kinds of issues have always existed when working on multi-platform games. They're not going away. They're something that's going to continue into the future. And in some ways, the only thing we can say is we have to try our best to overcome them. And that's what we're doing. I think specifically talking about my team and the way we approach this, perhaps one of our big strengths here is the fact that I personally started my career in games development as an engineer. So I've got that background.
We've covered some of this already.
That really helped.
The poor guy, he's been asked a lot of the same questions. He's going to give a lot of the same answers. There's only so much he can say, but I do want to shout out very quickly Hamaguchi's translator. He has two different translators he usually works with, a man and a woman that accompany him on certain events. This guy is great. Both translators are great, but translation is not easy because it's not a one-to-one from English to Japanese or English to Spanish. You have to really think on the fly of okay, how do I translate this? So his translator's working overtime.
Communicate with the engineer side of the team and really share our understanding and communicate about these kind of issues with them. And obviously that makes it that much easier to overcome them. And so I think we really are on this, and the way that our team's structured and my personal background make approaching these a lot easier perhaps than some other development teams would find. You mentioned the key card issue there. And I do understand why there are a number of people out there who maybe don't like this new format. And I get the reasons why they don't like it. That's fair enough. I'm not going to say anything about that. But I think it's, in some ways, it's part of a larger trend that we can't avoid. Certainly the move from physical media and the reduction in demand for physical media, getting towards a more digital releases. I think you see this on PlayStation, you see this on Xbox, definitely on Steam. Is obviously physical media, if a game is getting less and less part of the industry. Obviously, it's not going to go away immediately, and I specifically think for Switch 2, the fans, the customers on Switch 2 very much value what's good about physical media, and so for that platform in particular, it's going to be an even slower change. But overall, the trend is kind of going towards digital. But within that, where the keycard falls into that, I think it's not. I understand why a lot of people don't like this and maybe want to push back against it, but from a creator's perspective, I kind of think it gives us opportunities to put some games on Switch 2. It's such a great platform. It's got so many opportunities that there are some, especially high-end, real high-quality games that require a lot of memory that we probably couldn't put on it without as a physical version, without the keycard. And it gives you another option, really. I think it gives people more games they can play on Switch, and whether they take us up on that or not, whether they really don't like that medium, won't buy it because it's on that or not, that's up to them. That's very much their decision. I wouldn't want to influence that. But from a creator's perspective, it gives that extra choice. It gives more options for people, more games which will come out on Switch that might not otherwise. So in that sense, I think it does open up doors and maybe can be a positive in that way. But it's up to people how they want to take it.
I appreciate how transparent, I didn't get much sleep last night. I appreciate how transparent Hamaguchi is. He gets it. Like, not everyone wants the key card. Obviously, there's been a huge backlash to the key card situation with Switch 2. I don't have a Switch 2, so I can't really speak fully on that. But I get the whole idea of, like, a lot of stuff is moving towards digital. Digital sales have shot up over the years, but I think that also emphasizes that group of people that really just want their physical stuff. Because when you have the physical copy, usually that means you own that thing. Sometimes, though, you are still buying a license, even though you have the physical disc, which is a little wonky. They could just take a game away if they really wanted to, but this is a situation where it really is a double-edged sword. If you want to get these games on here to work, you gotta use the key card. I don't know what the other solution would be. Maybe Nintendo would have to come up with a either larger type of memory card that they're using or some sort of newer proprietary tech to allow them to fit those games onto one or maybe two cards. But like Hamaguchi approaches it from a very analytical perspective. Capcom was asked the very same question and they were just like, it's cheaper. It's cheaper and easier for us to just put it on a game key card. So it's kind of funny to see how different the devs can be. Oh no, buffering. We're buffering on a sad Hamaguchi.
Sort of industry
We're
hot
back.
topic we have right now is the sort of use of AI. A lot of developers.
That was very childish. You guys have seen my previous videos. You know how I feel about AI. I don't like it. I'm not going to hammer it home. We've covered Hamaguchi's response from this interview on AI, but now we'll get to hear him vocally.
Sort of see it as a good tool to kind of take away like the tedious tasks and to sort of operate a bit more efficiently. What is your sort of take on AI in game development? Is it sort of something that you're using or thinking of, or?
I love the lighting in 7 Remake.
Okay, so first of all, from Square Enix as a company perspective, we don't have any set down policies or rules about how AI is to be used, whether it's to be used, how it should be used. There's no company level policies or anything like that there for AI. But talking about it from my own perspective as a creator of AAA quality games, personally, I think that the use of AI on the creative side of game development, certainly at the moment, is not something that I could really go ahead with.
That's cool.
No, I couldn't think of using it for the creative side of game development from my own perspective. I mean, however, at the same time, I understand the need to be aware of these things, and certainly the games industry. This is a bigger topic than UI, really. Not UI, AI, sorry, really. But the idea that
UI.
game creation is a very complicated business. There's a lot of different moving parts and things to be aware of. Certainly in terms of the money-making side of it, assigning staff and managing teams, and obviously these are things we need to think of solutions for and be aware of. So I think being aware of possibilities and that kind of mindset of how can we be more efficient and how can we make things for the same quality but at a comparatively lower cost is something we do need to be aware of and pay attention to. It's really not the case at the moment that within my team we've got a certain proposal for AI, or this would definitely make it more efficient or be the way to go forward. But I think being aware of the possibilities there, and I do understand that thinking of how are we more efficient about things. Although, like I say, it's not just limited to AI. It really is a bigger topic. I mean, yeah, personally, I do use some of these tools, like Copilot, for example, for checking, again, when I send an email to someone.
Copilot is everywhere. I have a Windows 10 computer and I somehow have Copilot on here. I think I've tried to uninstall it and it keeps coming back.
On whether it actually is saying what I wanted to say or not, and on that level. But going back to the original point here that I made is, in terms of how far AI will affect creative side work rather than the more more functional.
Where is this footage from? Sorry to derail the video. This is interesting. Was this like behind the scenes stuff from 7 Remake I just missed? I'm trying to think what, because Cloud fights Reno a few times. This is cool.
Prosaic work. I think, again, obviously,
how they do all the mocap.
My
That's
team,
cool.
I think where it would stop at the moment, the current level that AI is in maybe getting resources together and preparing and finding references for that creative work. And in getting that together, it may have a role. But personally, I would like to think as a creator and as part of my creative team that however much AI might try and intrude and take part in the creative side of things, I think as humans, as my team, we would want to be as good enough creators that we could do better than AI. And we're definitely going to push that. That's the approach I want to take.
Yeah, that's, again, like, use it for the mundane stuff, the maybe crunching the numbers. But the unfortunate thing is that you have a lot of people in positions of power who see stuff like AI and they go, oh, we can replace people, we can fire people and use AI to take over entry-level positions and we don't have to pay anybody. So it'll create a problem, I think, moving into the future. Especially for entry-level jobs if people rely on AI. But again, if it can help them with like the tedious stuff but allow them to still be creative, that's the thing. AI is, to me, a soulless thing. It can't replace, the talent and passion that people like Hamaguchi and the team and other game developers have. It's just a soulless thing for me. Not a fan. Don't like it.
I imagine many years of sort of your development career has sort of been spent with Final Fantasy, obviously Rebirth, Remake, Part 3. So
his life is flashing before his eyes right now, like, all I see is Cloud.
Obviously by the time
this
that
poor
you
man
come full circle on that, that's sort of a great many years. But obviously with Rebirth now out and sort of looking back to Remake as it comes out on Switch, it's an interesting opportunity to look back on sort of what you were making or what you've made previously. Looking back, is there any sort of lessons that you're taking forward that maybe you were reminded of sort of looking at Remake?
First of all, that's a great question, thank you. Yeah, so I mean, obviously looking back over the 10 years of also working on the remake series, first of all, even just the first game itself, I think the first big challenge, and perhaps the most major challenge we came against is obviously remaking the game in the first place. It's such a well-known, popular game, so loved by such a large fan base. Doing it in a way that would satisfy the fans and getting that direction right was obviously the really big challenge we had facing us.
I think Kitase has done interviews in the past where before they had even planned a 7 remake, they were like, we don't know if we can even do it. That's such a monumental task. And eventually they decided to do it. Like Hamaguchi says, they're trying to please people, but like, you're never going to please the entire fan base. It's just not going to happen. I would rather they stick to what their vision is. If it lands, it lands. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But trying to please 100% of the fan base just ain't gonna happen. It's not possible. I don't know if there's anything that is universally loved and appreciated that I can think of, whether it's like gaming or movies or even like food. There's always something someone doesn't like.
So yeah, I think when we had we put out the original version of Remake into the world, and obviously it was seen by fans, and it was very well received by the fans. Certainly it was business-wise, it was a great success, and it was very well received by fans, highly regarded by the media. And I think that kind of proved that the direction we chose was the right one, and that we were successful in that, working out the right direction for the remake going forward. And I think that was a really important point, because that was kind of built the foundation for everything that went on after then, obviously moving into Rebirth, the second game, moving on into the third game. And it was only because of that really solid foundation that we worked out and got it right with Remake that we could then move on and try and add more to it and build on it and take on new challenges with each new game. That's part of the big vision that I share with my development team all the time throughout the development, and really want everyone on the same page with, is the idea that we want to advance and evolve the gameplay experience and build on it, rather than just creating another version of the same game with the same system. And then obviously we're doing very much the same thing. We did the same on Rebirth, we're doing very much the same thing on the third game as well. So in that sense, I think move on and bring up those new challenges is a very important part of that. And even though it's been 10 years, it's kind of felt like it's gone by in no time at all, just because of that constant evolution and that striving to keep building on it rather than just repeating the same thing. So I think that was the very important, that process of evolution and change during that 10 years is that's what we've learned from it, and that is a very important part of the DNA of this project.
Yeah, Hamaguchi's really stressed that in interviews, that each one of these parts is supposed to be a very different type of game. Obviously, there's carryover with like aesthetics and some of the combat stuff, but in terms of like how we interact with the world and the story, that's going to be different with each game, and it's been a progression. It's been, you know, linear Midgard Remake to more open world, and Rebirth to Part 3, which he's promised a very different gameplay experience. I'm excited. I cannot wait. I'm just thinking of like all the possibilities, because I get excited about like, oh, the high wind, and then I remember we got the weapons. I want to see how they tackle the weapons. How are those fights going to be? What kind of like actual weapons are the characters going to get? Side stuff, how do they incorporate all that? And there's been talk over the years since Rebirth came out about like how Rebirth is very checklisty, and we're all just kind of throwing out ideas of like, well, how do you change that for Part 3? And I'm currently playing through Ghost of Yotei, and I gotta say, Yotei has the best world exploration and side quest integration I think I've ever experienced in a video game, because they give the player a bunch of options on how you want to explore and interact with the world and everything in it. So if you want to do things organically and just run around the map and come across something on your own, you can do that. If you want to get a more accurate location for something, you can buy traveler maps, and it will pinpoint where certain things are, and then you can mark it on your map and go there. Or if you're just running around and you see something in the distance, you can raise up your spyglass and you can tag that thing you just saw and then go on your own. So they present options for the player, and you can pick how you want to explore the world. It's seamless, it's organic. I never felt overwhelmed with any of the side stuff. I actively wanted to engage with it because of how it was presented. So obviously Yotei is already out. Part 3 is really far in development, so I don't expect a one-to-one type of exploration system in Part 3, but maybe we could get something a little similar, where the people that want the checklisty stuff can have the checklisty stuff, and the people that want the more organic stuff can have, you know, the more organic exploration. So it'll be interesting to see if they go down the middle and offer options for people, or if they just full on be like natural exploration, organic, how it was in the original. I'd be fine with either, but I can't wait for this game.
And then finally, talking about how this links into learnings that we've got from doing the remake project, and how this links into what we want to do in the future and future projects after the final game in the trilogy is out. I think one particularly really good thing about working on these games, and perhaps quite a rare thing in the games industry, is the fact that we've managed to keep pretty much the same team throughout all of the games. I think the games industry it's quite common for, once a big project is done, a team will be split up, they'll be moved around, and then a lot of the time your next project will have to start again by rebuilding a new team. And we haven't had to do this for for the remake project, definitely. Certainly, the key members, the core members of the team have all stayed the same very much throughout all 3 games. And I think that really has helped us grow and evolve and become more refined and more capable as a team. Our experience really has grown as we work on each new game. So I think once we have got out the 3rd game in the series, and hopefully it's a big success, we'll move on to something else, and it'll be great to see what that team that we've managed to build up together produces. I don't know if it's the right way of talking about it, but the bonds, the relationship between the team has definitely improved a lot and strengthened that team. So I can't say at this point what that's going to be, whether it's going to be a completely new game, completely new IP, whether it's going to be something new within the Final Fantasy series. But I'm really looking forward, and I think fans who've seen what our work has been on the remake series, the 3 games, will really look forward to this new, exciting new gameplay experience. What we work on after that, I'm very much looking forward to working on that myself as well.
Yeah, keep the people together, let them cook. They've gotten so much experience over these past 10 years of making a big, massive AAA game like this. It'll be cool to see what they do with a new IP or a new Final Fantasy. Just keep them together. Let them cook.
That actually happened to be my next question, so thank you.
ちょうど次に聞こうと思ってたので、手が省けました。It's good.
Another thing I wanted to ask you is you previously said that the sort of discussion around like the yellow paint and Rebirth sort of surprised you.
Yellow paint, one of the biggest controversies to come out of Rebirth. It's not multiple worlds. It's not did Aerith die or did she not die? It's what's the tone? It's wrong. It's yellow paint. The biggest enemy of Rebirth is yellow paint.
And that you would sort of take that feedback into account. I think it's a very interesting like design problem. So I wanted to revisit that. How has the sort of feedback affected your vision for the world environment, say in part 3 and beyond, and sort of how you approach that kind of design problem?
Yes, I think obviously the debate about whether they should be yellow or not, and that's just about well, what colour do you prefer. So that's a bit of a different debate, really. But in terms of the wider discussion on these kinds of UI elements and obviously making interactable things obvious within the game world by marking them out in a certain way, yeah, I get there is a debate about that, whether that fits with that world or not, whether some people want it, some people don't. But I think as a game, there is definitely a need for that kind of thing in a lot of ways. I think obviously different developers, they experiment, try different things about what works best and what fits best, the right way of doing that in their game. But the need to guide players around from a gameplay perspective and show them what can be done and what they need to do, there is definitely times where that is needed. So I think obviously there is more of a debate about how it's done, what level and what works. And there'll still be people who say, no, that doesn't fit at all, we don't like that, that's fine. But I think there is definitely a need there, and it's something that is definitely worth looking at. What I do in future, obviously, not decided yet. But
I know you've
I keep flashbanging myself. For me, I don't mind yellow paint. I don't mind a signifier or some sort of marker that tells you where to go or what to do. Sometimes I do be a little slow and I need the help because I'm like, I don't know where to go and the thing is right in front of me. And if it's not marked, I'm like, oh, well, now I just feel kind of silly because it was right there. So in Rebirth, we had like the yellow paint in some spots. I think it was mostly used in Nibelheim. I don't quite remember some of the other areas, but in Nibelheim to climb up some of the rocks. Ghost of Tsushima and Ghost of Yotei both use paint on rock structures, but it's usually white or even like a brownish mineral-y color, so it's a little bit more organic with how you view it. But I don't really mind it. If you don't need it, you probably won't notice it. But for some people like me, I kind of need it. I sometimes need the help, but like, I don't think there's really any harm there. But it is interesting though, because if in part 3 they do go with a more organic exploration thing, would they use the paint? Because if it, is a situation where things are missable, they want you to discover it on your own. Does the paint, kind of disrupt the immersion? So it'd be interesting to see how they handle that.
I've said previously that you're very influenced by the games that you're playing. So I was wondering if there are any games that you're playing yourself right now, and potentially the most difficult question I might ask you is, do you have any Game of the Year shouts right now?
So, yeah, just a personal comment. This is nothing more than that, but I really think Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is a really great game, and it would deserve Game of the Year this year. I'd like to see them get that.
I would be shocked if Clair Obscur does not win Game of the Year. It's got everything going for it right now, man. Like, it's very well received. It's sold well. It's scored well. The narrative behind the game, again, which I really stress, and this is not to take away from the quality of Clair Obscur, but the narrative behind how this game came to be, of these ragtag group of developers who, you know, some of them worked at larger companies, but then they left because they didn't like how they were like boxed in. They get together online through like Reddit, and they create a group that creates a French JRPG, if you will, that takes into consideration all of their personal inspirations, from Final Fantasy to Persona to Sekiro to like Lost Odyssey, all these crazy franchises that they were inspired by. They made their own version of those types of games. And for the game to come out at $50, for it to do as well as it's done, it's made massive shockwaves within the industry. And it shows people that you don't have to have these huge AAA budget games all the time. You can have your developers just create an artistic vision and just let them cook, and you can sometimes come up with something like this, which for me, I got issues with the third act and the endings, but there's people out there that think this is a masterpiece, and for them it's one of the greatest games they've ever played. And at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. If you find a game that you click with on all levels and it affects you deeply, that's why we play games. That's why we cover games. So this game had a massive shockwave feel throughout the industry, and it's voting for it sends a message to a lot of these bigger companies of, hey, maybe don't have so much red tape. Let your developers come up with a unique vision and support them, because this game would not have been made under an Ubisoft or an EA or any of these other larger corporate entities, because to them, they want money. Is this game going to make us money? This wouldn't have gotten past the concept phase at somewhere like Ubisoft. So it just sends a really cool message of, you can scale back a little bit and have something super artistic and well regarded that people connect with. So yeah, I would be shocked. I don't know if it's going to be my personal game of the year. I'm still working through GOTY. But I'd be shocked if this doesn't win at the Game Awards. Again, we don't know what's going to be nominated, but this feels like a shoo-in.
So yeah, I mean, Clair Obscur is why I think it's such a great game. Obviously, a lot of people pick up on the fact it's a JRPG style.
We've covered this in a past video.
Of it and the fact it's turn-based.
It's more than its mechanics.
Mechanics incorporated into that to get a new spin on it. And that's great. That is definitely a good part of the game and one of the things that makes it what it is. But personally, I think that shouldn't be focused on too much. I think from my perspective, what makes that game so good is the fact it gets all of the elements in it right.
Yeah.
And it balances them all at such a high level of quality. So, for example, the setting, the world, the characters, the storyline, those are all really well done as well, in addition to the gameplay. And I think it all comes together, and that's why it's such a well-regarded game, why the fans like it so much and why it sold as well as it had. I've got to mention, obviously, we get on very well with the development team that made Clair Obscur.
Yep.
They came over to Japan a while back and we met up with them. They came to our head office and the development team spoke to them, and it was really inspiring, and we got on very well with them. So you can see they've got a lot of respect as well. Not only have they made a really great game, but they showed that respect to the traditional turn-based style of JRPGs. And obviously, as Japanese games creators, that's really delighted to see people taking that and doing something with that. So yeah, I really like that game. I recommend it.
That was a really cool moment, seeing those two teams come together. I keep pausing at the worst times.
Going back to Clair Obscur, it was really cool to see you post earlier this year about meeting them. And it must be quite interesting meeting devs that are inspired by your own sort of work. There's been a lot of talk this year about sort of a need for more AA games. Is there anything that you can sort of learn from a game like Clair Obscur yourself?
Okay, I'm actually very curious to hear, because, you know, Square Enix is currently in the middle of restructuring and focusing more on quality over quantity, going multi-platform. So I'm very curious to hear what Hamaguchi's thoughts are on maybe more of the AA type games, which I know people hate that phrase, but I use it just to delineate. It's an industry term. Don't shoot the messenger, okay? So it's just easy to delineate between a big, massive Call of Duty and a smaller scale Clair Obscur, which we still don't know what the budget was. They just said it was super modest.
That's a really good question. That's very sharp, very intuitive. I think certainly where we are at the moment with AAA development is it's not just an issue for Japanese development. It affects Europe, it affects America.
Yeah.
Exactly the same. But just the costs involved in creating AAA games really have risen so much.
Budget's balloon.
So first of all, I think if you look at the difference between, and my take on the difference between a AAA game and a AA game, as it would be called, is obviously in terms of how complete and how multifaceted it can be. And what I mean by that is a AAA game kind of has to, whatever direction you look at, whatever element you take, it's at a very high quality. And so, yeah, they've done that really well. They've also done that really well. This is also a really high level. And from whichever direction you look at it, it's a high quality development. With a AA game, obviously, you can't approach it in the same way. Essentially, what you have to do with a AA game is you have to pick one aspect or one element and really push that and then break the mold with that, take that to a high level, when obviously at the same time it won't have all of the other areas done to the same level. So you can't approach a AA game like you would a AAA game, just because the money, if you start doing it that way, the money will spiral out of control. You'll be making a AAA game at the end of it. Anyway.
Yeah. It is interesting that he says that too, because like Clair Obscur is great. It's a very high quality game. It does have some jank in it. There's some like graphical stuff. The platforming is not great. I still have nightmares of climbing the gestural tower and falling off when I get to the top, which is unfortunate. But I think kind of the benefit of having a AA game and a smaller budget is that it forces you to be a little bit more creative with how you approach your game and your story, and you're a little bit more picky and choosy on what you focus on, like Hamaguchi says. And I think with Clair Obscur, they really hammered home the visuals and the gameplay. And you look at a game like Clair Obscur and it's very striking. It's a very beautiful game. It looks like it's a AAA game. So they clearly put a lot of resources into the visual elements and the art style, which again, art style is so important. A lot of people forget art style. You can have a beautiful game that has like a realistic art style and it's just not going to be that impressive. But a Clair Obscur, a Final Fantasy, a God of War, these types of games that really hammer home their art style, that is oftentimes what carries the visuals. So that in the gameplay combat is what Clair Obscur, I think, really hammered home and put a lot of their resources in. And it shows. But like, yeah, there's some jank, but like, that's fine. Like, I don't care if someone's, cape clips through their leg. I don't care if like hair is freaking out and doing something weird,
Yeah, I mean, looking at how I fit into that and whether I'd like to make those kinds of games as well, I think if I completely ignored the reality of it, the position I have in the company, what they want me to make, the requirements for my position and that kind of thing, I would love to try and make a game like that, which is really focused on one area, pushing the boat out and making that one aspect of that game as really fun as possible. I think that'd be a really great thing, and I'd love to do that, but I think realistically, where I am, I'll be developing AAA games. That's what I'm doing. That's where the company has me at the moment. So realistically, it might be a bit difficult for me to be involved in making some of those at the moment.
Oh God, I'm so bad at this. Yeah, that's interesting. Obviously, he still works at Square Enix. He's got to do what they want him to do. But it'd be really interesting to see Hamaguchi and CS1 do maybe not necessarily a AA Final Fantasy or AA new IP, but something that's a little bit more trimmed back. Because look, it's nice to have the resources they have. They've got a lot of money to work with, and you see it in the remake trilogy, from the visuals to the music to the gameplay to the overall design. The what's the word I'm looking for here? I can't think of the word, but the overall just like thesis of what these games are. You see the money, you feel the money, and they do utilize that money really well. To be fair, it's not like they're just burning cash. It's being used for the right things. But it would be interesting to see him lead a smaller scale game and kind of put themselves in a situation where it's like, okay, we got to pick one or two things and really hammer those home.
I think certainly the situation of who can make those AA games, and it's obviously generally smaller studios, people who don't have the backing, the financial backing behind them like we do at Square Enix to be able to make that higher level of budget commitment. And it's really good to see lots of smaller companies in venture businesses, people like them making these kinds of games. And it's really good. As a creator, I love seeing it stimulating. and we can always see every year there'll be more of these, and looking at these, I want to support these games. If I've got a chance to work together with some of the people who make these kinds of games, I think that'd be really great as well. So from an industry perspective, I think it's really healthy, and I like seeing those AA's coming from those smaller studios.
Yeah, it's kind of like a film situation where you have these massive blockbusters, but you also need those smaller independent films. Oftentimes, those big blockbusters can fund the smaller films and vice versa. And AA games, they fill a niche that is sorely missing right now. We have so many AAA games. Again, AAA games are great. I love them. But sometimes you want that AA type of experience where a game is really good, high quality, but it's not going to cost you 70 or 80 bucks. So with the success of Clair Obscur, you're going to see way more of these smaller studios pop up, but also publishers that are willing to take chances on them. Again, one of the reasons why Clair Obscur turned out so great was their publisher, Kepler Interactive, who wasn't too hands-on. They did have some thoughts here and there of like, well, we'd like to see you guys work on this and this and then come back to us. But they, for the most part, just knew that this team had a vision and they just wanted to support them the best they could. So it would be interesting to see like a partnership between Square Enix and Kepler, so that way CS1 and Sandfall could do something together. Probably won't happen. I proposed the idea of like, well, what if they work on FF8 together? Some people got really mad at me for that, saying like, oh, we finally have this new original dev team and a new IP, and you want them to do a remake. I was making the video for fun. I wasn't, like, be nice to me. I'm going to cry. So I don't know. It's just a really interesting time in the gaming industry where things are really crazy and shuffling around, and again, to have these smaller games make these big impacts is a really good thing.
Question that often tears my own team apart. I'll put it to you, obviously, as someone who's played as a player of the original Final Fantasy, is, are you sort of, having played that game yourself, are you a bigger fan of the Tifa or the Aerith ship with?
I dare not say the names of these ships because they scare me. And I've had one specific ship in particular attack me in previous videos. I wasn't even being aggressive. I wasn't saying anything like specific, but they did not like the fact that I like Tifa. She's one of my favorite characters, but I also love Aerith. I think sometimes those hardcore shippers, I'm not talking about all shippers, there are shippers that are cool and like, yeah, I like talking about these characters, but they realize like not everyone's into it, so they're very respectful about it and they've got boundaries. But then you got some people who are like about it, and I think maybe that mentality for that specific section, again, I want to delineate between those two, is that you have to like one or the other when you can like every character, and every character can have some sort of relationship with the other. So Godspeed Hamaguchi when you answer this one.
Loud.
He knows.
That's one I absolutely cannot answer.
That's the right answer.
Yeah, he dodged that bullet.
Okay, so I cannot answer the question. I will not answer the question. But I think one thing I can say, after spending so long working on these games, over 10 years of developing on the Final Fantasy remake Rebirth series, I've spent so much time looking at Cloud, walking behind him, seeing him go around the world. I think I've probably spent more time looking at the back of Cloud than I have anyone in my actual family. So I've got this very special feeling. I've got a lot of sympathy, I have a lot of affinity with Cloud himself, and I just want what makes him happy.
Good answer.
It's a great answer. Thank you.
Oh, man. Yeah, like, comment, subscribe again. I'll leave a link in the description to the full video if you want to watch it on your own, but like, good on you, Hamaguchi, for dodging that last one. It can invite some very scary people, that's all I'll say. But I just love all these characters in particular. They're multifaceted characters. They can have relationships with multiple different characters. Not every relationship has to be romantic. So that's the beauty of these characters. That was a pretty good interview. I think, again, this is probably the full GamesRadar Plus interview. I know they've been releasing little segments of this interview online in article form. I'm assuming this is everything. So, but yeah, Hamaguchi, man, this dude is working his butt off right now. And I did get a comment from somebody in a previous interview saying he shouldn't be doing these press interviews. He should be working on the game. My dude, he is working on the game. He's working on this game almost all the time. Even though he might be in London or the States, he's communicating constantly with the team back in Japan, and he's not letting up. He's constantly working on this game. So we might not see it, but he's there doing it. So great interview. Again, the link will be in the description down below. These are always, I flashbang myself again. These are always interesting to check out. Hamaguchi's a talker. And I appreciate how transparent he really is. He will clear up whatever question you got. But with that being said, let me know in the comments down below, what did you guys think of Hamaguchi's interview with GamesRadar? Is there anything specifically that got you going, oh, I wonder how that'll affect part 3? I am Curious Corduroy. I will see you guys in the next video. Please remember to always be excellent to one another.